bringing to the light. From maps to mods to the rigs we drive, we're talking to the folks who keep this farm life alive. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull up a chair and ride along with me. Stories from the makers, the builders of the scene. Farm Sim Talk, where we live the farming dream. He's got questions rolling like a big John Deere, digging deep with modders so their voices we can hear. From giants of the code to the artists painting skies, he's shining up their stories like a brand new combine. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull up a chair and ride along with me. Stories from the makers, the builders of the scene. Farm Sim Talk, where we live the farming dream. From tractors to textures, from silos to sounds, there's a whole crew of heroes making this world go round. So tune in and find out who's behind the screen. Farm Sim Talk's the place to see what farming really means. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull up a chair and ride along with me. Stories from the makers, the builders of the scene. Farm Sim Talk, where we live the farming dream.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. This is Big Daddy Dave, and this is Farm Sim Talk, a show where we get to talk to other modders, map makers, and content creators, and find out a little bit something more about them. I am, of course, joined here tonight by BB Mods. BB, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, very, very welcome. Pleasure to have you on here tonight. I am looking forward to it. Today marks the day that we are now officially doing our 50th Farm Sim Talk. That's right, 5-0. Holy smokes, could not be more excited over that. 50 Farm Sim Talks. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a good day. Gonna be a good day. So, BB, do you want to kind of give us an introductory of who you are and what it is that you do here in the community?
Yeah, so I'm BB Mods. Pretty new to the farming simulator community. I've been making mods for past year or so, um, primarily vehicles, implements, stuff like that. I do have a couple PC-only script mods and a couple placeable mods, but for the most part, looking at tools and implements on my end.
Excellent, excellent. And can you tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, so on the screen there, you got all my links and also in the description. Primarily, I just do Facebook, BB Mods on Facebook, and then I do have a Discord as well for updates and stuff like that. I do post early access stuff on Itch. As it stands, everything that I've been working on eventually comes to ModHub, but generally when I send it into ModHub for testing, I'll post it on Itch for PC. Right now, that's usually, 2 weeks to a month, depending on testing times of early access for itch users.
Excellent,
And that's
excellent.
it. I don't do X or anything like that.
Gotcha. And do you want to give any shout outs?
I mean, yeah, I'll give a quick shout out to a couple people that helped me out past year. Chris S. and Riley S. and Schultz Modding, like two people I chat with a lot. They've helped me with some stuff. And then a couple of the content creators that I chit chat with and bounce ideas off of, Tony Myth and DJ Goham, have been really helpful this past year. So big shout out to those guys.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so real quick, want to catch up with the chat here. We see a whole bunch out there. So I see Ken Adlam, Farmer Donkey, Dust Bunny. We got who else we got here tonight? We got Pippa, and it looks like Chris and Riley S. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Thank you all for coming out here tonight. So let's go ahead and get into our first segment here. It's called Digging Up Dirt. This is a segment where we get to know you for more of you rather than who you are within the farm sim community. So first things first, do you have a job outside of creating your mods, or are you just a full-time modder?
No, modding is a part-time hobby for me. I do have a job. I am a full-time mechanical engineer for a company that makes custom electrochemical plating and processing machines.
Oh wow, so like you're dealing with some pretty intense equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the overall, we kind of dabble in a lot of different industries, but kind of the easy things to think of are like things that are chrome plated, like tools, wrenches. We made some machines for that industry. We do a lot of stuff for wafer processing, not like making semiconductors, but taking raw silicone or yeah, raw silicon wafers, and people plate them with nickel or gold, stuff like that. Think about like the little pins and stuff that are in your HDMI cable, and they say, "Oh, they're gold plated." We have machines that do that. Gold plating stuff for pins. We do a lot of stuff for medical industry for like polishing and cleaning and stuff like that. So it's kind of applies to a lot of industries, and my company specifically kind of does everything in house. So as an engineer there, I one day I'm designing transport, you know, devices for machines, and I'm designing tanks for chemicals, and I'm doing chemical compatibility with materials, and it's very, very, very wide array of things that I touch on the day to day because we do everything locally here in Florida. We design, manufacture, and ship and install everything.
I gotcha, I gotcha. So that must keep the job really interesting, being able to kind of touch on so many different things.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are kind of there's a pretty small team. My branch, I guess you could call it, or my division as machine design and fabrication engineering team's only like 4 guys. We all have some specific things that we're generally pretty good at. Like with most machines lately, I've been doing a lot of the pneumatic stuff, where that's the air operation controls and stuff like that. But for the most part, every day is a little different. We have some big projects come through, and you kind of get stuck on the same kind of subsystem for maybe a couple weeks at a time. But throughout the course of the year, we're touching between each project. I might touch 3 or 4 different major categories in that project, and then just the wide variety of machines that we make. Throughout the year, we make 3 or 4 big machines, and they're generally all for different industries. So it's pretty varied in that sense. Keeps it interesting.
Oh, for sure. I mean, just specifically because you get the opportunity to like work on different components and whatnot, it really can help spice up the job. Not sitting there doing the same thing over and over and over certainly helps. So let me ask you, what kind of hobbies do you have? Do you like to go hiking, fishing? You watch sports?
Yeah. So right now, to be frank, I very blinders when I get a hobby. So right now it's been mostly just, farm sim modding as a hobby. I do play a musical instrument weekly with a local community band. My wife does as well. So I guess that's a hobby. Some other hobbies I've had in the past, I used to get really into taking apart and modifying Nerf blasters. And that has kind of morphed into I had a little product design kind of side hustle and slash hobby. I was working for a little bit, but kind of paused recently just because I've been moving and stuff like that. So that's kind of the only other hobby I'm actively doing is I design and 3D print accessories and stuff for Nerf guns and stuff like that.
Okay, so you mentioned that you and your wife play in a local band. What instrument do you play?
I play euphonium, which you probably don't know what that is unless you were in band in high school.
I do not. I have never heard of that before.
Yeah, so euphonium is like a small tuba. It's similar kind of voice and range as a trombone, which most people are more familiar with. I
Mm-hmm.
do play a little bit of trombone. I haven't played it in a while. I do have a trombone. I've been meaning to practice and get back up to speed on, but it uses the same mouthpiece, so similar kind of voicing and range. The euphonium's a little more mellow and deep, whereas the trombone's a little brighter and punchy. But yeah, it's similar kind of utility in that sense, kind of that mid-range brass sound.
Okay. And you mentioned modifying Nerf blasters. That's interesting. So, what kind of modifications have you done?
I mean, yeah, so that started when I was in high school. Back in the day, this was, early 2000s. Nerf guns were pretty puny. You shoot a dart and it goes maybe 15, 20 feet and then, hits the ground. So what I would do is take it apart. They designed them with some restrictions in them to make them safer for kids and making sure they're not less likely to break. So you take some of those restrictions out, it lets you get a little more airflow and shoots the dart farther. I also did some cosmetic stuff where you kind of hack apart various blasters and glue them all together and make a hodgepodge of um, different unique cosmetics. More recently, they started making actually not Nerf brand, but some other brands make some more powerful stuff, which is what I kind of cater towards in my Etsy shop sells some accessories designed for the more high power stuff that's already pretty strong, but some muzzle attachments that help things fire straighter or just cosmetic accessories that let you add sling points, stuff like that. And so I do all that with like 3D printing right here in my house.
Oh wow. So, what would you say is kind of the more crazy modification that you've done to a blaster?
So there was a very brief period in time where I actually got in contact with somebody online who paid me to make a blaster for them. And the most crazy one that I did was probably the one for him. It was the main blaster was a battery operated one. It shoots decently fast. I modified it to shoot even crazy faster, but then I strapped on two extra ones on the side. So there's a total of three blasters off one trigger. And that was pretty crazy. That could dump out uh, almost 60 darts in 2 seconds.
Wow. So is it like kind of a similar
Yeah.
mechanism as one of those like almost like those electric BB guns, like you see the people doing the airsoft. There we go, airsoft battles. Is it kind of a similar kind of mechanism to that?
So now in the last 2 or 3 years, they've been making more that have a similar mechanism, but the older style ones, would be primarily for electric blasters. It would be flywheels, which would be a spinning set of wheels, and then something pushes the dart into the wheels and it flings it out the front. That's what that one was. There's three of those strapped together, you know, professionally. It was nice and had fancy hardware. It was all mounted together and all rewired to run off one trigger. But yeah, it's a set of spinning wheels that flings the darts out, and high velocity.
I've got a big smile from ear to ear because I can just only imagine if I got a hold of one of those things, the amount of trouble I'd get into.
Um, the first time I tested that one specifically because it was so crazy, I couldn't help but giggle myself, and I knew it was going to happen because I was more or less expecting. I put stronger batteries in and stronger motors and stuff, and there's three blasters, so it's going to be crazy. But yeah, it's when you see it in person, it's pretty nuts.
I could only imagine. Oh my goodness. I'm just sitting here, like I said, I'm imagining all the trouble I would have gotten into.
Yeah,
So you mentioned that this kind of started in high school. Do you feel like that kind of led you down the whole engineer path?
yeah. So I got into it when I was in high school. A friend of mine that I worked with did Nerf wars with his local youth group, and they would kind of modify and paint their stuff. That kind of got me into it and kind of opened my eyes to this whole hobby. I was interested in engineering at the time, but the way my high school worked, I kind of missed the boat on like taking the engineering kind of special classes that they offered. So I just kind of went through with that. I actually didn't get into engineering specifically for a couple of years after that because I went to school for automotive first. So it's kind of my time working on cars that kind of realigned my and opened my eyes to the possibility of going to school for engineering. But I'd always been interested in tinkering in that sense.
Okay. So when you were, working on cars, what kind of stuff did you do with that?
So yeah, I went to school for a couple of years to get my kind of technical degree. Worked at a dealership for a couple months and wasn't really a good fit. Worked at a mid-size tire chain for a while and did it. They call it C-level work, so you're talking oil changes, tires, suspension, brakes, kind of minor diag, minor engine repair stuff. Um, Worked at a small shop for a couple months in between all that, and that's what kind of opened my eyes. I worked with this cranky old mechanic and kind of realized maybe I didn't want to turn wrenches for the next 40 years and be a cranky old man myself. So that's when I kind of started looking at going back to school while I was working.
I gotcha. So would you say that you have a passion for cars or a kind of affinity for them?
Yeah, I won't quite say passion. I definitely admire the mechanical side of things, but I never really grew up, project cars and stuff like that, and really get into that much. My uncles were all gearheads, and they raced cars and stuff like that. So I kind of grew up watching them race and stuff like that, but never really doing much with them as far as getting in there and doing anything.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, what would you say would be some of your favorite books, movies, or bands?
So books, I don't really read too much, for better or worse. I do listen to music a lot. I do like to listen to a pretty wide variety of stuff. Primarily, though, I'd say if I had to pick, mostly rock and oddly a lot of classical music. Coming some of the music that I play, wind band stuff. Um, but yeah, I do listen to a lot of different subgenres of rock. You could say my favorite is probably like kind of 2000s punk rock kind of stuff like that. Green Day, stuff like that.
Do you have like a favorite artist or?
Once I have I'll pick one. There's a pretty pretty long list. I think right now most of my playlists are a lot of Newfound Glory, Green Day, Blink 182 is kind of up there as far as like total songs in my playlist. Got a lot of I have a separate playlist for like my punk rock versus my heavy metal type rock. So the other playlist I have a lot of Metallica, Avenged Sevenfold, Slow Down. Those are probably my top three for each kind of subgenre there.
Nice, nice. So, what about movies and television? Do you like movies and TV?
Yeah, I mean, I end up watching a lot of television and a good bit of movies too. I generally have something on while I'm working. Same thing when I'm modding because my work's pretty flexible in that sense. So I like to put on something I've seen before, just kind of listen to it almost in the background. Um, I do like to watch movies that are action movies and like some of the Jason Bourne series, one of my favorites. A lot of those kind of spy movies. I haven't watched too many of the like Mission Impossible ones, but I do like a lot of those type action movies. And then for TV, I don't watch a whole lot. Right now I'm actually just rewatching The Office, but I don't really stay up to date with any of the new series and stuff. I kind of rewatch the old stuff I've seen before.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat you are there. When it comes to rewatching the older stuff, it's got to be like I've got to hear so many different people say, "No, you got to watch it. No, you got to watch it." And if I don't hear it from at least one or two people that I explicitly trust their judgment on, then it's just a hard pass right off the bat. I don't know. It's just I've come to the point in my life where I just don't have the time or the patience to get into especially long series. It's something that's really drawn out. So that's for better or for worse. I'm probably missing out on some really good ones out there, but it is what it is. What would you say would be like your favorite movie of all time?
I had to pick just one, probably either the first Jason Bourne movie or maybe Ocean's 11. Those are probably two of my favorites.
Both of those are really good, very good movies. Um,
Classics, yeah.
yeah, it's been a hot minute since I've seen Ocean's 11, but yeah, the Jason Bourne, the whole series there was really good.
Yeah.
So, kind of thinking on the opposite end of that spectrum, what's one of the more oddest, weirdest, or most obscure movies that you've seen up until this point?
That's a tricky one 'cause I'm trying to think. I remember, but I do like the Hunger Games series another group of movies that I really enjoyed, and I want to say if it's the movie I'm thinking of, I want to say it was like a spoof Hunger Game movie. I can't remember. I think that there might be a couple, but I remember watching it thinking, okay, I know it's a spoof movie, it's supposed to be funny, but just kind of see what happens. And I remember thinking the acting was just so terrible because it's a knockoff spoof movie, but it was really interesting because like I'm 99% sure it was a Hunger Games movie or said a knockoff, but I remember thinking they spent like 10 minutes on this scene that in the original movie was like 30 seconds, and it just seemed it threw the timing all off, and like halfway through the movie they were only like a quarter of the way through the plot, and they rushed through the rest of the plot in the second half of the movie, and that
It's wild in how some of those spoof movies do a really good job on actually hitting the mark. Like they're really genuinely funny. They're very creative. But then there's those other ones. It's like, did nobody bother watching this? Like, did they just sat behind the camera, decide this is good enough, and then just threw it out on the DVD or threw it out on the internet? Like,
exactly, yeah. I remember watching it because I'm thinking like oh, the Scream movies or spoof movies of all kind of scary movies. Those are pretty popular and pretty funny. Like this, I obviously, like I said, I knew it was a spoof movie, so I wasn't expecting it to be, an amazing action movie or anything like that, or a drama. But yeah, it just kind of seemed like it was very blatantly just like a cash grab at trying to piggy off the backs of the popular movie. It was just really poorly put together, and I was like, okay, well, that was a kind of waste of an hour, but whatever.
well, I mean, I can think of like I mean, you got your some of your good ones like Hot Shots, Hot Shot Part 2. You got I mean even Spaceballs. I mean, you got something like that that's basically
That's a good one, yeah.
a classic, in its own right, but it was genuinely done like yeah, it was goofy, but it was done like with a passion for what it was that they were doing too. So you can kind of see it come through. Um, so yeah, it's one of those. like I said, there's some good ones out there, but then there's some of those other ones like the latter halves of the scary movies, like you were mentioning there. It's like, don't know.
Yeah, I think I've only seen um, one or two of the Scream ones. I know there's a bunch now, I think, but
Yeah, I think there was like four of them or something, and I think yeah, I think the first and the second one. The first one was good. Second one was good, but it was starting to show its age. The rest of them just kind of boo, just kind of nosedived into the dirt.
yeah.
So, what would you do if modding was no longer an option for you? Let's say you came home one day and your entire computer setup was just completely gone, just exploded, didn't have the means to replace or anything along those lines. What would you do in its place?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky because, like I said, a lot of my other hobbies are kind of computer required. So I'll give you the caveat. If I still had a computer I couldn't mod, I'd probably focus more on the product development and doing some stuff like that and whatnot. If I cannot use a computer, I'd probably spend more time working on learning some instruments. Like I said, I've been meaning to get back into practice my trombone and stuff like that. Unfortunately, my free time is not very conducive for playing instruments at 10 o'clock at night with the kids in the house and stuff like that. But if that wasn't a problem, I'd probably end up doing that.
I mean, come on. You wouldn't you don't think that you'd be the favorite dad in the whole house? You just sitting there and start blasting away on the horn at 10 o'clock at night.
I mean, I'm on the other side of the house, so who knows? Maybe it'd work out. But as much as I want to say, it's a terrible idea, they might just sleep through it, and it always surprises you, things that they sleep through sometimes.
Oh, it's something that I heard this and I've experienced this to some degree as being a father, but I was told that children will sleep through almost anything as long as it's like consistent. Like if you're just kind of springing it on them one day and it's like a shock noise, then those tend to wake them up. But as long as it's like something that's like consistently happening in the background, they'll pass out regardless.
That's a good point. Yeah, I can see that.
So, would you consider it to be a dream or some kind of like high ambition to be a modder, or do you feel it's just something you kind of fell into?
Oh, definitely something I just kind of fell into. I kind of played around with, the idea of some other games, kind of looking at it, and never really turned into much. With this, with Farm Sim, just I started seeing some tutorials on how to do it, and started playing around with some stuff that I wanted to change, and it just kind of snowballed from there, and kind of thought it'd be interesting to share, and it kind of just grew from that. But yeah, I never really had any specific intent on being where I'm at right now.
And you mentioned that you had a couple of kids. You want to kind of let us know the family dynamic?
Yeah, so I have a wife and two kids. Oldest daughter, she's almost 6, and my younger son, he's turning 2. They both had birthdays here early this year, so a couple months away.
I gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, it sounds like yours are only just a little bit north of mine, so not too far off there. Like I was telling you offline there, I've got one that's almost going to be 4. She's going to be 4 in February, and my other one is going to be a year and a half. So yeah, not too much of a gap there. But so let me ask you, how do you come up with that balance between that kind of home life, the work life, and the creator life, the modding life?
But it's terrific. It's difficult for sure. I've kind of gotten to this pattern where I work 5 days a week, so I'm usually not home until 5:30 or 6, and we sit down and do dinner. And the youngest goes to bed pretty early, 7 o'clock usually. And my older, she'll stay up a little bit sometimes till like 8 or so. So I tend to not work on anything for Farm Sim until the kids are in bed. Sometimes, like during the weekend, I might do a little bit if they're napping, but I don't generally, want to take away from time with them. And then in the evenings, me and my wife sometimes we'll do stuff together. Or usually, she just wants to sit there and read a book or something. So
That sounds very, very familiar. Very familiar. Yeah,
yeah,
almost a mirror image to what's going on over this household. So I completely understand you there. So, do you like to travel?
yeah, I like to. Don't get to very much, but definitely enjoy it when I get to.
So, if money were no object, what would be your like number one must have to travel destination?
I think the top on our list right now, if money wasn't any factor, would be Japan probably. We just really enjoy the culture and the food. We'd love to go over there and kind of get to experience that, go sightseeing and all that stuff. Second to that would just be kind of say Europe in general. Kind of doing the whole Italy, doing all the kind of. It's so easy to hop around in Europe, so we're kind of hitting some of those big hotspots.
Oh, absolutely. So, Japan, what would be some kind of the big spots you'd want to hit there?
I mean, kind of want to go like do the whole Tokyo thing and kind of walk around and see all the you know crazy city area with all the shops and kind of do that kind of thing and get sushi and whatever. Go see some of the mountains and the temples and stuff, kind of out of the city more. I haven't we haven't done a whole lot of research into specific areas, but just in general, I think we'd probably want to. If money wasn't a thing, take 2 or 3 weeks and kind of hop around and kind of get both sides of it, kind of like I said, the city, see the city, and then also see the kind of more rural areas, kind of out in the mountains and whatever.
I gotcha. No, that makes total sense. I, so I was never huge into like anime back in the day. I'm starting to getting into it now, and watching it now kind of makes me more interested in like the culture. So it's one of those that I want to do my research. I want to kind of figure out because I think it'd be kind of like you mentioned, it'd be really cool. And I've seen like the pictures of like the more rural mountainous areas and stuff like that. That would be more like my speed personally. Like the cities and stuff never really kind of impressed me, regardless of where they're at. But no, I can completely understand what you're talking about with regards of just kind of going there and just kind of experiencing everything. I think that'd be pretty cool as well. So kind of along the same veins as the if money was no object, but you mentioned earlier that you used to work on cars and that you weren't necessarily passionate about it. But if money were no object, what would be your dream car?
I always wanted to get. I'm pretty sure they don't make them anymore, but for by no means, the car enthusiasts are going to tell me this is a stupid idea. I always liked I think like 2010s and a couple years after that for like the Ford Raptors, kind of that kind of more uh, off-road, kind of wider wheelbase spec of the Ford F-150. That was for a while there. It's like if I could have 60,000, $70,000 to put towards a truck, which nowadays 60,000, 70,000 isn't that special, but 10 years ago that was a pretty expensive truck. But I always wanted to get one of those kind of. I don't do. I don't really have a need for it. I don't have anything I tow or I don't really go off road or anything like that, but just kind of cool truck to have.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those where I always found it interesting, especially when it comes to cars. What people will say is this is the one I want because you meet pretty much anybody and everybody across all walks of life, and the type of car they get, it's extremely unique to that individual. So way back when I had a friend back in high school, and he swore up and down that he wanted specifically the Volkswagen Golf 1. That was his dream car. He was going to scrimp and save and have like he specifically wanted a European version of this car. He didn't want one that was built here or built for the American market. He wanted specifically the European. He wanted to bring it over from Europe over to the States, and he would just go on and on endlessly about this Mark One Golf. And it's like, dude, like I would look at him, it's like it's a hatchback. Like, why? but
Yeah, it
it's
is
just
interesting. Yeah.
it's just interesting when you kind of peel back the layers and you start to like understand. It's like, okay, well, I mean, that was something that he really wanted, and that's that would have been his, like, if money were no object, he would go overseas, bring it on over, and do his thing. But it's interesting. It's very interesting. You kind of you learn a little bit about people when you ask these kind of questions. So
Yeah, I had a buddy that I see on Facebook all the time, and he has a mid '90s BMW something, and he's crazy about it. I was like, to me, it just looks like a normal '90s four-door sedan, but he's like, "Oh no, I love my car. Take pictures with my car. Look, this person drew a picture of my car. It's awesome. You know, photo op." He's crazy about it, but
Oh, and it's I mean, there's so many different reasons why people can, become, like passionate about their car. It's like, oh, well, that's the vehicle my dad and I drove in, when I was a little kid, or, this is
yeah,
the car that we had growing up, or whatever the case may be. And it might be the biggest junker in the world, but to you it is like the Rolls Royce of cars. Nothing else can change it because it's yours and that's what you want, kind of thing. It's always found it interesting how things can be embedded into people so deeply that condition doesn't matter, that all these different factors that others may look as important. It's like, what, I'll overlook these because this is what I want.
yeah.
So what's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you, like when somebody's getting to know you for the very first time? What's that one thing that you think kind of shocks them the most?
I mean, if I end up talking about this, modifying Nerf blasters hobby, that kind of throws people for a loop usually. Um, Other small thing, it's I feel like people say it's common, but me and my wife met in high school, so married my high school sweetheart, which is actually not that common for at least my age. So millennials feel like most of the people I talk to, they met their significant others, after high school, in college, or at work or something. So it's kind of, I wouldn't say it necessarily surprises people, but I feel like a lot of people kind of, oh, that's cool, it's, oh, how sweet, kind of thing. Kind of not that common anymore.
No, I mean, that's certainly not very common. And congratulations, that's awesome. Yeah, it's not something that you hear especially too much nowadays. So what's one of your biggest fears that keeps you up at night?
I don't think there's anything I could really label as, a giant fear. I'm pretty easygoing. I think just kind of the normal stuff, just want to make sure my family's safe and secure, and both physically and financially, kind of things like that. But I wouldn't say I lose sleep worrying about it or anything. At least not lately, at least.
Gotcha. Do you own any pets?
Yes, we do have one cat. Um, she's 7 or 8, almost 10. My wife says almost 10. Gosh, time flies, right?
And what kind of cat is he or she?
She is, I want to say, just a tabby cat. I think that's just her color. I think she's an American short hair, technically. She is a stray that we took in when she was really young, so I never actually knew exactly what she is. But looking at some stuff online at one point, I want to say American short hair is what she would be considered. She's like orange and black, kind of spotted, blotchy colored.
I gotcha. And do you consume any like YouTube content or anything along those lines?
Yeah, I do watch YouTube a lot. Like I said, I usually have something on during the day. Watch a pretty wide variety of stuff.
And who would be some of your favorite creators outside the farm sim community?
So I'm subscribed to a lot of the kind of science and engineering educational ones. So there's a couple like Real Engineering, Stuff Made Here, are some of my favorite ones. Mark Rober's up there. A lot of different kind of makers I watch. I watch a couple different like woodworking guys, even though I don't know a thing about woodworking. It's just cool to watch them. Stuff like that.
So it was actually going to be my next question there, and you kind of beat me to the punch there. But one of the things I've experienced in my time is when you have somebody who's an engineer who tends to be very mechanically inclined. Very oftentimes, you also find that they are inclined in multiple different areas that allows them to be creative. Woodworking being one of them, like not metallurgy, but more like metal work and things like that. Do you find yourself like kind of in that same mold, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the facilities to get into things that I would like to explore. Um, I meant to actually, I forgot to touch on this earlier because I knew you were going to ask me about the other hobbies thing if I didn't have my computer. I thought it would be kind of cool to get into, I don't know if it's exactly what you meant just now, but metalworking as far as like machining. So if I had money wasn't an issue, it'd be really interesting to kind of get like a lathe and a mill and actually do some, starting with a block of metal and machine it down to make stuff. And then I do watch some people on YouTube that do that kind of stuff too, which is kind of interesting. I don't have a shop or anything right now to have a machine like that.
It's really incredible what somebody can do, especially nowadays with like the world of 3D printing and stuff like that. But I mean, even just like you said, a lathe, just a simple lathe, you can get so much stuff done with just one tool that it's incredible. And then if you're really good at things, like, and you can kind of combine them with other steps and other tools, I mean,
Yeah.
the the possibilities are endless at that point. But like I said, almost like 3D printing is almost becoming like a force of nature all by itself. Um, Actually, as a matter of fact, I've got a new sign. Big shout out to my buddy Mark K. Mark actually made me this 3D printed BDD gaming that's over my shoulder here. But yeah, no, for 3D printing is something that I personally have been checking out and been kind of thinking about getting into. And I think you mentioned earlier that you do some 3D printing as well, didn't you?
Yes, I do. I have a decent, quality 3D printer. It's getting pretty old now, but when it first came out, it was pretty, I could say, top of the line. I got a good deal on it, and I've made some modifications to it and tinkered with it. Just like I said, I enjoy tinkering with everything. Um, and I've been designing and 3D printing stuff for a couple of years now. It is really fascinating as a technology just to be able to think about something. The easy low hanging fruit that is actually useful is like brackets. Like I just want to be able to hang this thing right here. I can just go into my design software and sketch up the design in 15, 20 minutes if it's simple and hit print. And then an hour later, I'll have a custom bracket that fits exactly what I need it to do. It's pretty a pretty powerful tool to have.
So, did you get into like any of the actual like design work of the 3D printing world, or are you more just kind of getting like templates and stuff from other creators out there to then print for your needs?
Oh, I design everything that I need to 3D print pretty much. There are a couple things that I downloaded, like mainly just like as a 3D printing tinkerer, there's a lot of different tests you can print to calibrate your machine. So some of those I'll download and use that to calibrate the machine. But everything that I need, whether it be for, like I said, the Nerf blasters or for stuff around the house, I generally just design it myself because I have the knowledge to through my engineering degree and my
So,
daily work. I do engineering design all day at work too. So
so do you feel like that engineering design and the kind of 3D elements from the 3D printing, do you think that that helps you when it comes to your modding?
um yes and no, because the software I use every day at work and now at home when I'm designing stuff for 3D printing, it's called parametric modeling, whereas Blender, which is what you use when you're making mods for Farm Sim, is more of a mesh modeling or a surface modeling. And on the surface, they are similar. You know, there's certain aspects to it that definitely translate well, but I my knowledge in the parametric modeling side to me is a lot easier to manipulate things. It's a lot more forgiving. Um, it's all based off of relationships. So when I design stuff for work, I say this part is this long and this hole is in the middle of it or something like that. And then at any point you can go back and change your previous measurements and change your spacing and stuff like that, and then it recalculates all the spacing. It's called non-destructive. There's a feature tree. You can actually rewind all your work even after you've closed the program and reopened it. You can rewind it back and make edits. Whereas something in Blender, it's destructive modeling. So whenever you make a change, and if you hit save and close the program and open it back up, you can't just go back 5 steps and change a number and then recalculate. So in that sense, it's been kind of difficult for me to kind of learn Blender. I'm starting to get my bearings on it. Um, but I have actually used my fancy modeling software that I use for engineering. I can actually start there and then import it into Blender, which is kind of an unusual workflow for farming simulator, but it kind of lets me kind of merge the two together. I can make the bulk of my geometry for some custom stuff I've made in SolidWorks, which is my preferred modeling. And then I can finish it up and make small tweaks and do the material stuff in Blender.
Okay, okay. And if you could meet any three people, who would they be and why? And we're talking anybody from the past to the present, celebrities to famous people in history. Who would they be and why?
So first, I'd probably say Mark Rober. If you're not familiar, he's a YouTuber, a science YouTuber. And he used to work at NASA, so it'd be kind of cool. He was like a cool guy, and it'd be kind of cool to kind of pick his brain and talk to him. Um, I'd probably also say Elon Musk, just because currently he's the richest man in the world. It's got to be interesting to talk to him. And then he's so heavily involved in all the various, SpaceX and Tesla. And while he isn't an engineer himself, he has surrounded himself by with super smart people, and kind of interesting to pick his brain a little bit too. The third one, kind of thought about this a little bit earlier. I met my grandfather, but if I could, I'd like to go back and kind of get to know him better. I feel like as a young adult, he started to have like Alzheimer and dementia. It was kind of never really got the chance to hear some of his stories and stuff. He passed away a little over a year ago, and I learned about things I didn't even realize about him from his obituary. Like, oh, I didn't realize, he dropped out of high school to work on his dad's farm, and I knew he was in the military, but I never really knew what branch or anything. So I think it'd be interesting to be able to get a chance to kind of hear his stories and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's that's something that I always thought too. Is I'd love to go back and meet my grandparents because my grandparents died when I was very young, like I was a baby, kind of thing. And similar to you, my grandfather was in the military, and love to be able to get those kind of stories, like the things like that. Is just always I found those so fascinating. Definitely, people from previous generations are cut from a different cloth. Uh,
Yeah.
But last question I got for you for this segment here is, what was your first paying job?
Uh, High school, I worked at McDonald's for a couple of years. That would be my first. I was finishing up high school and going through automotive school.
And what did you do at McDonald's? Did you do pretty much everything, or did you like stick to one thing or another?
Yeah, so I started off in would be called service. That's the upfront people taking orders and bagging and stuff like that. And later on, I became primarily a grill person, either working the grills or more often than not, I was working the line, like assembling sandwiches. And then I worked a lot of nights, so I was kind of the main go-to guy for deep cleaning the grills and doing stuff like that. I was a trainer at one point, and then kind of not wasn't quite worked up to management, but I was kind of one of those higher up trainers that would have been like kind of next in line if I wanted it, but I never really pursued that.
Alrighty. Well, like I said, that's the last bit I have for this segment here. So now it's time to set my sights on the chat. So first things first, I want to give a big, huge shout out to Dust Bunny. Dust Bunny, thank you so much for gathering up all these questions to send them over my way. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. You make it so much easier when recording this show here to be able to just ask these questions without having to scroll through the laundry list of chats. So first things first, we got Pippa is asking, what is your favorite map and mod?
So that's actually a kind of a hard question because I actually don't really play too many mod maps. uh, Currently, my favorite map is Wasika County by Matsy. That is the one map I have been playing for the past 8 months, for the small amount of time I actually play the game. Outside of that, my favorite mod, I'd say it's boring, but Easy Dev is my. I need that for everything, whether it be in my testing save. I use Easy Dev constantly for spawning in trailers full of stuff for testing or whatever, and then even in my save game, if I had to pick one mod, having Easy Dev just makes my life so much easier. I don't typically cheat. I don't give myself money, but like if something were to happen and I feel like I, for some reason, got cheated out of, money, it's nice just to be able to give myself a little money or turn on super strength for a second to flip your tractor because it got, glitched through the ground or something. So not the most glamorous of favorite mods, but definitely a go-to and a very necessary thing to have.
Oh, 100% agree with you. It is an absolute game changer when you're in my position, you're creating content for YouTube and whatnot. Being able to use the tools like EasyDev, it just revolutionized because I came from the console world and eventually moved into the PC world. And oh, it was just an absolute game changer. But no, I completely understand. So one of the things that I kind of picked up on there for a second was, and something I've kind of heard from other modders as well, is that very oftentimes when you do the, oh, and I just bumped my microphone. When you're doing the modding, very oftentimes I hear that people kind of lose sight of the actual playing aspect of the game. And I mean, really, it's kind of like that on all levels. I'll expand on that in just a second. But um, do you find having time to actually play the game, or are you just more kind of into the modding portion of it?
Um, I would say I'm definitely more into the modding, especially at this point. I'm looking at my Steam right now. I have 782 hours in FS25, and I would say 600 of that's probably more than 600. That's probably just working on mods and stuff. I don't play a whole lot now. I gotta get very similar to just the whole entire hobby in general. I'm very blinders, and I just keep working on stuff, and I got new ideas. I want to start working on this and to work on this. And I actually spent some time the past 2 weeks to actually take a break from mods, and I haven't worked on anything for 2 weeks now, and did actually play a little bit the past 2 weeks, which is a nice change of pace. Just get on and kind of relax and watch my AI work or go do some stuff while I kind of zone out and watch The Office a little bit.
Oh, that right there sounds like absolute paradise. Just letting the AI worker doing something and watching The Office on the other screen. Oh, that's some good times right there. But I was starting to get into it before I kind of focused in on the question I just asked you. But it's something I find kind of very common amongst just creators in general is that the like for myself, I do the same exact thing. I don't hardly ever play the game. I'm normally just creating with it, whether it's making map tours, updates, making the role play videos, whatever the case may be. So I don't often get a chance to play the game, and it's something I hear very often from anybody who's just creating with the game is the lack of play time kind of thing. It's mostly just the work or the kind of the thing that you're doing with the game. So it was just
Yeah.
something I kind of uh, I guess I just kind of picked up on like just recently, even in my own life. Uh, just seems interesting that you spend what is it like $60 for the game, and it's not even the game per se that you're doing and that you're playing. It's you're doing something that's beyond the game. It's just something I kind of thought of and thought was interesting. But Pippa, thank you so much for your question. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Let's see. Next one we have is from Nacho Cast. Nacho, how you doing tonight? Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Says, who is your favorite YouTuber to make mods and to make mods for, and why is it Nacho?
Well, my favorite YouTuber to make mods for is Nacho, because he's the only content creator that I specifically made a mod for. Um, Not sure if you're familiar, my transfer silo mod was Nacho's idea, and it turned out great, and I greatly appreciate his input on it.
That's
So
awesome.
thanks, Nacho.
I was completely unaware that Nacho was the inspiration of the transfer silo. I'm completely unaware. And for those of
Yeah,
you who
even more than just inspiration, he specifically wanted it for his Let's Plays. Like, I have this map, and I need this specific thing for the next process or the next part of my Let's Play. Can you do that? I'm like, I think I can. And I looked at it, I was like, yeah, I can do that. This is a great idea. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna put on Mod Hub.
That's awesome. Do you often find yourself creating mods from suggestions from others, or is it kind of a rarity?
I'd say kind of a rarity. I have one other mod on the Mod Hub right now that was a specific idea from somebody that I like, so I put it on my list. I do take suggestions. I have a suggestion section on my Discord, but I do pretty much say flat out, I don't take, requests for that sense. If you have an idea, put it out there, and if I like it, I'll put it on my list. If I don't like it, it's not going on my list.
Gotcha. And yeah, I mean, just going through the kind of list of stuff that you've created up until this point, I mean, we've got things like the Square Baler Plus, Round Baler Plus, we got the Lizard AgriFlex, the Lizard Pro Bale. I mean, there's so many stuff. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I'm a big fan of your mods. Like a lot of your stuff that you make are those kind of conveniences, those quality of life mods that are just so huge for somebody like myself who's looking to kind of be able to do something maybe in the background what they're creating and just not have it be on the kind of front stage, but it just makes things so much quicker and easier to get the job done. So yeah, big fan of your stuff, especially like the tractor swathing. That was a huge one for me personally. Love that one. But yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Nacho, thank you so much for your question here. Let's see. Next one we got is from Ken. Ken, how you doing tonight? Hope you're having a fantastic one so far. Says, what's your most downloaded mod for Farm Sim 25?
Let's see. I got my Mod Hub up right now, actually, and I want to say it's tractor swapping. Let me. Well, actually, no. So pretty close tie between my Agriflex SPB and the custom bale support pack. Right, those two are up there. Tractor swapping in third then for that.
And you kind of broke up. So you said the Agriflex, and what was the second one?
The custom bale support pack.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Nice. Nice. Again, Ken, thank you so much for your question. Greatly appreciate it. Let's see. The next one we've got here looks like we got Farmer Donkey. Farmer Donkey, how you doing tonight? Hope you're having a fantastic one so far. Says, how do you decide on what you want to make into a mod?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a list of ideas on my phone. Most of what I kind of target is things that have unique functionality. I don't have a big desire to make this specific year of, John Deere 6R tractor, or, this specific configuration of this trailer or whatever. So I, generally speaking, most of my ideas have come from um, things that I wish had a little more functionality, a little uniqueness to them in that sense.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, Farmer Donkey, thank you so much for your question. We got another one here from Ken. Ken asks, what got you into modding for FS25?
So yeah, it actually started. I did a little bit of editing for personal use for 22. I started playing Farm Sim completely, and we'll probably talk about this more later, I'm sure, in 2024. So I've only been playing for the end of 22, and I edited the the quick bale to kind of suit my own personal wants a little bit. So that's as 25 came around, I actually stumbled upon Lambo Mods. He is kind of doesn't make too many mods for FS25 right now, but he does make some YouTube videos, and he posted some tutorials on, how to do this kind of XML editing stuff, and that's what kind of jump started it for me. And I started getting in there and playing around with stuff, and kind of found my stride. And making the first mod I made was the Round Balers Plus. So I was pretty early on in the life cycle. I think I finished that mod in December of 24, so the game was only a month old at that point. There wasn't any balers on the mod hub or anything like that. So the idea there was I want to have a baler that is a little upgraded over the base game balers. If you look at the spec list, they're a little faster. They have some extra features like unfinished bales. Their default capacity is slightly boosted. They're 1.5x capacity. So that's kind of where it started. Was I like doing baling, and base game balers are so slow and bales are so small. So I wanted a slightly bigger bale, a little faster. It was kind of evolved from there.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. Again, Ken, thank you so much for your question. We got one here from, actually, a few here from Dust Bunny. She asked, uh, where do you see yourself in the next 5 or 10 years with your modding?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right now planning on continuing to do it for who knows how long. I'm hoping that in 5 years I'll still be interested in doing it. I am trying to gain my skills, working on, I think I hinted at this earlier, trying to get a little better at Blender and start working my way into more unique stuff. So in that sense, I'm hopefully in 5 or 10 years I'll be much more versed in that and be able to kind of not have to feel like I have to pick and choose what I have to work on based on my abilities. I like to really get to that point where I can just say I want to make this and go ahead and make it, and not have any. Obviously, there's always going to be issues or roadblocks, but not have any kind of major knowledge gaps in that sense.
She also asks, who is the creator that you watched when you were first starting to play?
So when I was first starting playing 22, I primarily watched Farmer Cop Let's Plays. I watched a lot of DJ Goham. Since 25 has been out and about, and I've been starting to get more into the community, I do still watch those two. I also watch Cody Myths streams almost every day when I'm at work. So chit chat with him a lot, and a lot of the guys that hang out on his stream.
Excellent, excellent. All right, that looks to be the end of the questions I have so far. So let's go ahead and get into the second segment here. This one's called Meat and Potatoes, emphasis on potatoes. This is where we're going to get to know more about your modding side of things. So, first things first, I got to ask BB Mods, where does that come from?
It comes from my username, BBDude, which is a username, you know, handle, whatever you want to call it, that I've had since I made my first email when I was like 8 years old.
Gotcha. And do you only create content within Farm Sim, or do you work on other games as well?
No, just farm sim. Like I mentioned, I briefly kind of looked at how to make, some Minecraft stuff a while back, and I never really got anything into it. In that sense, Farming Simulator is really unique because it has such as much as I might and other modders might want to harp on Giant's lack of documentation on how to do certain things, it's no denying that the system they have in place is pretty unique in the sense that they have Giant's editor and all that stuff kind of available to learn modding, whereas any other game you're purely relying on external education and tutorials and various levels of quality in that sense. So I never really got too far into it with any other game.
So you mentioned that you started modding like relatively early, like or not early, but relatively late. You were at the tail end of 22 when you started playing, and then you're kind of really getting into it right now here in 25. So what's one thing that happened that you really never expected to happen when you started modding? Some examples I give are like the sense of community, any kind of unexpected backlash. What was that one thing that you just never expected to happen?
I mean, yeah, just the overall reception, I am surprised at how generally helpful the community is for the most part when I reach out to people and ask them a question on like, hey, could you maybe point to me in the direction of how this works and something like that. People are usually pretty receptive on that, but um, the biggest thing I think is just seeing the volume of downloads and the reception that people have given me that I wasn't fully expecting. Like I said, I didn't have desires and aspirations to become a modder, but I just started kind of getting into it and posting things and seeing people, excited about the stuff that I'm releasing is really rewarding. Sometimes you look at it like, I think this is a great idea, but is everybody else going to think it's a great idea? And for the most part, everything has been very well received, and that's just super exciting.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being, definitely interesting. Um, w- what was one of your like favorite moments up until this point?
If I had to pick like a single moment, it'd probably be kind of what started I think my more involvement with the community. When I first started posting, I made my mods and I made Round Balers Plus and Square Balers Plus and the Pro Bale all in like December, early January of 25, December 24. And if you recall, that first couple months of FS25, the mod head wait times were like ridiculous. I sent in my first mod, Round Balers Plus, I want to say no, December 12th, and didn't go on Mod Hub till mid February, so like 2 months of waiting. So I started posting some of those early mods I made on itch and kind of promoted them and shared the links on some of the like DJ GoHam's Discord. And I distinctly remember Tony Miff, the content creator, he shot me a message and he said, "Hey, I checked out the Agriflex. This was like I think the fourth mod I made. The Agriflex. It flew really well. Like, what do you mean it flew really well? I don't know if you've ever seen Tony Miff's live streams, but he likes to take mods and put them in a catapult and fling them across the map. So that was pretty eye opening. I was like, what are you talking about? So I went back and watched the replay, and at that point, I started watching him, daily and kind of getting more involved with, chatting with people and kind of the more involved on the community side of things, which has been really fun.
Yeah, I'm not deeply familiar with Tony Miff, but that was the one thing that I was very familiar with was the launching of equipment. I've seen that a time or two pop up on my timeline. Oh man, but I can only imagine like the little Agriflex just getting heaved across the screen. I haven't seen it, but now I kind of want to go look for it.
Yeah. So
Oh
yeah, that
goodness.
specifically, like, they sent a message. I was like, it flew great. What are you talking? It flew great. What are you talking about? Like,
It's not a plane.
exactly.
Yeah, I would be very confused too if somebody reached out to me randomly and said, "Hey, your mod flew very well." Excuse me? So, in this point in time right now, would you consider Farm Sim to be your favorite game? If not, what would be?
Yeah, I'd say, similar to, like I said a couple times now with the hobbies, I do get very narrow-minded, kind of blinders on, and can say with pretty much certainty the past few years, the only game I've booted up has been Farm Sim between 22 and now 25. I do generally go in waves. I'll play one game for months or, upwards of a year or two at a time. So by that measure, yeah, it's definitely my currently favorite game. It's the only game I've been playing for the past couple of years.
And you kind of touched on it earlier. Your kind of schedule at which you keep because it stuck out to me because sounds so familiar to mine. But how many hours would you say consists of you actually being able to sit down and create your mods or be able to play the game?
Yeah, so right now, most days I do a little bit at least. Like I said, I do primarily spend most of my time working on mods, whether it be, hours in Giants Editor, which it doesn't track, thankfully, or hours in game troubleshooting and testing. Um, most days of the week, I do spend at least a little bit of time messing around with stuff. If the family's out super late, we're coming back from somewhere, it's already 10 o'clock at night, I might not do anything. Um, Wednesdays, I usually get home kind of late, so I do typically do something at least an hour, but generally, yeah, most nights I'd say I get in 3 or 4 hours, and lately that's been 95% modding time and maybe 5% actual playing time.
And you mentioned earlier how you don't get that much time to play, but when you do, you also mentioned that you really didn't get into like the mod map scene too much. So, what kind of maps do you play on?
Yeah, so for 22, I only played on Elm Creek. I had one save game and I played it, a lot because it wasn't modded back then. And I just played Elm Creek and I did my thing there. I did enjoy watching some Let's Plays on some other ones, but I never actually got around to playing them. In 25, I played Riverbend for a bit, and then I played a couple other, I think I played uh Frankenmuth for a little bit, and then I once Maxi released Wasika County, I've been only playing that. Like I said, I don't play it a whole lot. When it first came out, I played it for a good bit. Can't remember exactly when that released, but I do know this most recent kind of dry spell of actual play time. I had played a bit when Plains and Prairies was released, and then I played a bit this past couple of weeks. So that that 6 month kind of gap in there between Plains and Prairies and the holidays, I hadn't really touched my save game.
I gotcha. And so, how much of the news do you tend to keep up with in Farm Sim?
I'd say I keep up with all of it. I do usually watch DJ Go Ham's kind of what was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I guess now for the time being, daily news stuff. I do follow a handful of people on Facebook. So as I'm scrolling through Facebook on my business page, I generally see what they're what they're up to. Some of the bigger modders, Icus and all them, I follow on Facebook. So
And of the news that you pay attention to, I mean, the maps and stuff, kind of outstanding because they're not really into, so much playing the game as you are just creating for it. But what's some of the news that you're most excited for coming up in the future here?
um, I'm actually really not sure. I kind of, like I said, I do follow it, but nothing's really sticking out in my head right now as far as specific things that I'm excited for. I guess pretty kind of excited for the new Big Bud that Classic American Icons have been working on. Um, I don't currently and I haven't ever had a Big Bud in my game, but that new one looks pretty cool. I'll probably end up getting that once it releases and I get back to whatever time after that I start playing again. I was debating getting a Big Bud for my save game, so that one seems kind of cool. Then maps, I haven't really been following anybody specifically. I know there's a lot. The closest one I would say was probably Fishing Valley, which came out the other week. So that was kind of the one I was kind of keeping an eye on the most because it looked really really detailed and really nice. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but that one was I was pretty excited for.
Oh yeah, that is definitely a beautiful map. So you being mostly into the modding scene, um, think back to when FS25 was starting to spin up its gears and then FS22 was starting to wind down. We were starting to get all the news on like all the kind of features and things like that were really like going to be existing within the FS25 realm. So we were seeing things like God Rays, we were seeing things like ground deformation, so on and so forth. What was one of those kind of features that Giants was saying that was going to be in FS25 that you were most excited about, not just from a kind of gameplay perspective, but from a modder's perspective?
So kind of tricky because like I said I wasn't doing a whole lot of modding in 22 going into 25. I didn't have expectations of doing a whole lot, but I did, like I said, had a little bit of experience playing around with the Baylors, and it's a pretty small feature no one really talks about, but I did think it was really cool how the Baylors now have, their consumables, the wrap and the net and stuff. I know there was uh, the net and fine add-ons for 22. I never actually played with those mods. Which, if I recall correctly, did the same thing, right? They added the consumable net and wrap for the Baylors. I thought that was kind of a nice touch. I didn't really think about it when I was playing 22, but once I saw that feature being added, it kind of made sense that why do these Baylors have infinite, material in them? It's a nice little touch of realism to have to get a pallet and go to the pallet and refill it, every now and then.
No, absolutely. I'm right there with you. I was actually really excited for that as well. So, what's one feature that's not in Farm Sim that you really wish was there?
I really wish there was a little more nuance in planting and taking care of your crops. I realize it's a fine line between keeping the game simple. I wouldn't say Farm Sim is an arcadey game, but to a certain extent, the Giants wants to be able to appeal to the general population as much as they can. But it'd be nice if there was maybe different seed types or something that you could turn on or off, or like with something with the difficulty. If you had like a higher difficulty, you had to have different seed types, or maybe additional stuff with like irrigation and watering, or you know, stuff like that, pesticides, and maybe if that could be turned on or off, similar to liming, and that way, if people don't want to deal with it, they can just turn it off and not deal with it. But people who want a little more immersion could easily turn those features on and have a couple more things to manage and have a little more fluctuation in your field's kind of yield. Right now, it's pretty. If you do XYZ steps, this field every year is going to get you the same, profit plus or minus 100 liters. So it'd be cool if there's a little more variability in that. I know there's some mods that do that, but the mods are super random. It'd be nice if it was kind of like more baked into the game.
I gotcha. So let's think back to how we were discussing like the knowledge base, and you were saying that as you kind of progress along, you're hoping that you're going to get to a place where eventually the kind of knowledge that you have accrued over that time is going to be enough to basically walk you through everything, minus maybe some hiccups here and there, but you'll be able to accumulate enough knowledge to be able to make your way through just about anything in game. So taking that into account, what's that one mod that you wish you had the knowledge base for now, but just feel like it would be kind of outside of your reach at the moment?
Oh, and I don't have anything on my list specifically that I wish I could make. I can tell you right now, I could not make a full sized, tractor from scratch or something. I'm kind of reliant on finding either base game assets that I can modify, or finding a purchased model, which I'm going to start looking into more. But I've heard mixed reviews on, buying a general 3D model and tweaking it for farm sim. Um, but if I were to say there's a specific thing, I know I kind of would like to be able to make like a self-propelled sprayer that's a little different than some of the ones in game. And I know right now that's not something I could easily tackle without, having to purchase something or something like that.
I gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So, as a modder, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's just starting to look into getting into modding?
Yeah, so there's a lot of information out there. As with everything on the internet, some of it's good, some of it's bad. But my advice would be to just start looking at how to do XML editing and how the XML kind of stuff works. Start working on stuff that you want to see for yourself. It's not groundbreaking, but just changing the factor speeds and changing the capacities and stuff like that. It'll get familiar with how all the XML stuff works, and then the community is really helpful if you do a little homework first. There is a section on the Farming Simulator Discord called Modders Helping Modders, and generally speaking, if you post a question there and you post a detailed question on this is what's happening, this is what I tried, does anybody know what's going on, you generally get a good response. Don't just go in there and say, hey, how do I mod? And that's generally not very well received. But if you do a little homework first and kind of can show that you've looked into it a little bit and you've tried a couple things, and generally speaking, most people are more than happy to help you with specific ideas or specific points or something that might be tripping you up.
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, this is the 50th Farm Sim Talk. So I've gotten to talk to quite a few modders over, the past, almost year that we've been doing this show. And that's something I keep finding kind of a running theme, is, the community of modders are so willing to help out, and able to even help out those who are just starting to get into the door. kind of thing. And it's one of those that the kind of repeating theme, and you kind of hit on it as well, was the um, at least make the effort to have started something. Don't just come up with a, well, how do I mod kind of thing. That tends not to be looked at too kindly. But a like, hey, I tried this, and I've worked the code in such a way, and I've done this, that, and the other, and I just can't get this one little thing to work. Is there anybody out there who can help? And more oftentimes than not, you'll find that somebody's willing to either help you, or do a little bit of research, point you in the right direction at bare minimum, kind of thing. Um, yeah, it's one of those where the community that we have here is really, really strong. One of the best that I've ever experienced ever. So yeah, it's that's a very common thing I've heard so many times from other modders, is just the willingness to help. And that's not something that you see very often in places, just in general, let alone in other gaming communities. So it's nice to see. Let's see.
Yeah, I was kind of worried when I first started, like if I ask a question, are, these other more established modders going to kind of like gatekeep that knowledge? And for the most part, I've not seen that. I'll admit, there's been a couple people I've reached out to and I've gotten no response from, which I guess is better than being a jerk. But for the most part, yeah, people are very willing to help if you're, like I said, if you kind of show you've started looking at it and have some idea what you're looking at.
So thinking back through all of your mods that you have released out for the Mod Hub at the moment, looks like you got, let's that's 4, 8, 12, about 12 total mods, as best as I can tell here. Which of those mods would you consider your favorite mod that you've created?
As far as playing in game, the main mod that I'm using right now, personally, is tractor swapping. If you ask me for my favorite mod as far as like the most fun and I guess, challenging to make, would be my most recent, which is still pending, the Polaris roller that I currently have coming. That is, I feel like every mod I've made, I'm kind of upping my skills. So the Hilarious Stego wheeled roller, which is coming out soon, had a bit of Blender work and some custom decal editing and some special XML tweaks that not many people know how to do. And so that one, as far as modding ability, was up there. Even though it's just a roller, but it's pretty special how it turned out in my eyes.
So you mentioned the tractor swathing, and that's honestly one of my favorite mods. Just full sentence stop. That's on the Mod Hub. I use that a lot, a lot. Even if I'm not using necessarily the headers for the tractor, I'm using the kind of built-in productions and stuff that's in there as well. Um, where did the inspiration come for that mod specifically?
So honestly, I think it just kind of smacked me in the face while I was sitting at work. I really enjoyed the swathing pack from 22. I never actually played on Edgewater, but I play on PC, so I had the swathing pack and the swathing add-on by BC Bueller for 22. And so once I heard swathing was coming to 25, I was really excited because it was a fun kind of, you know, I guess kind of different way of doing things. I really like the Macdon pack and stuff like that. So I was kind of thinking, how can I kind of get into? I want to make a swathing mod, but I, as a modder, you can't edit DLC stuff. It's encrypted, so I can't edit the Macdon to make a custom swather. Obviously, I don't want to take BC Bueller's stuff. At that point, I was like, I'm assuming he's working on converting it. So BC Bueller's working on his pack eventually. I reached out to a couple people who had swathing mowers and stuff from previous games, but didn't get much response on, how well it would work to convert it. So I kind of was thinking, it'd be really cool if I could make a swathing mod, and then just kind of smacked me in the head. I was like, what if I like took the grain header and I just used it with a tractor, and then funny story. So I started going down this rabbit hole of okay, I can have it operate a tractor, and oh, I can have it picked up by forage wagons, and then forage wagons can bring it to production to do the separating. That's all fine and dandy. That's all cool, and it kind of all worked out. And then about a month or two after I finished making it, I actually found a real life picture of a 3-point mounted swathing header. It's a real thing in real life.
Okay. I honestly I had no clue that it was real until after kind of digging around and doing a little bit of research myself because it's one of those where you do get those mods on the mod hub. It's like, okay, clearly that's like not real. Like clearly there's something like pulled straight out of fantasy. And when I first saw that pop up, I'm like, I love it, but is that real? Is that really something that's out there? And I ended up, looking around, seeing what I could find, and yeah, I found something very similar to that. It was just a 3-point header reel that was made for swathing. I was like, that's really cool. So no, that's.
Yeah, so I
Go
think
ahead.
you kind of hit it on the head in the sense that the header seemingly is real. As far as I know, there is no kind of standalone building that will do the thrashing or whatever you call it. You still need a combine, but generally speaking, with my mods, I try to approach it from a sense of like if it has an increased capacity, can I justify it existing in real life? So like going back to the Round Balers Plus, my first mod, it is faster, it has bigger bales, but I justify it. I think I even say it in the mod description by saying it has, role play aspect. It can do this because it has upgraded, internals and it costs more. So there's a kind of a realistic factor to that. So I feel like all if you look at all my mods, the kind of the baseline of them, they do have some really unrealistic options, like the tractor swapping headers. They have, you know, 14-meter unrealistic working widths, but the basic version of it, I try to keep it, even if it's something that is a fantasy mod, technically, I try to keep it, somewhat justified of, okay, well, if it has this building, the buildings should be more efficient at, extracting the crop. So that should have a higher yield than if you had to do it in the field with a combine, which is actually how the recipes are set up. If you use a MacDon, you get a 25% bonus. But if you use tractor swathing, you get a 30% bonus because, in my eyes, a dedicated building should be more efficient at, separating your crop and your straw. So everything's kind of based in could that exist? I feel like that should exist. Kind of thought process.
Well, no, and that makes a load of sense because you're right. Because a lot of your mods, yeah, some of them do have that kind of unrealistic capacity, but the ones that are still within the real life realm, they might have a little bump up or a little expanded like catch area or whatever the case may be, but still within the realm of realism. It's not like you mentioned DJ Goham, and he's kind of famous for the things that he goes out there and modifies, and it's like 100 meters wide, and has a gajillion liter capacity and stuff like that. It's like that might be an option, but not a base kind of thing. So that's one of the things
Right.
I really do appreciate about your modding is that I can I can run these in the background with a kind of unrealistic kind of feature to them, but at the same time I can have them in the foreground and have them as a actual something that is being used within a series or something that's actually like front and center kind of thing. So it's like the best of both worlds kind of thing, which I've always really appreciated. Let's see. So of your mods, which one of them like took you the longest to do?
Mm, it might be Round Balers Plus. I guess probably took me a while because I was learning. And it has, my technically biggest pack. If you include total time spent in updates, because the game has added multiple balers to the free content updates now that have been added to Round Balers Plus. But that's my, the biggest pack by far because it has 7 or 8 things in it now, and I was just learning. Um, so that one probably took the longest. Second to that would probably be the tractor pulling sled, which was a conversion from 22 by Ridiculous Dominic. I got permission from him and been chatting with him a lot, and I helped him kind of finish the conversion. So he started it, but it took a lot of finessing in game to kind of get the kind of polish that I wanted to be able to add to it, and the couple features I added to it when we brought it to 25. So that one took a good chunk of time too.
And looking at your mods, I mean, pretty much everything here is either like implements or productions or whatever the case may be. But one thing that's glaringly lacking are maps. Do you have any ambition to create a map at some point?
No, I do have a tiny tiny shred of sanity left, and I don't think I'm gonna go down that rabbit hole.
I gotcha, I gotcha. What about the map making process do you think is the part that's making you want to kind of steer away from it?
I mean, not that things that are hard work are not necessarily not worth it. And I know it's a lot of work to get a map. If I were to do a map, I feel like I would want to get a lot more custom buildings and not rely so heavily on base game assets or having large quantities of required mods to do custom buildings. But I think the bigger part of it is I don't have a specific region I have a desire to recreate. And unless I could think of some type of interesting mechanic like Edgewater, Saskatchewan had with the swapping, which is kind of my my attraction to mods is the added functionality, new mechanics, stuff like that. Unless I could think of some type of unique map feature like that, I don't think I would really be that interested in creating just another US map or whatever like that. Like I said, I don't have a specific desire to make a specific region like that.
Okay, so it's not really so much that like the map making process is something that you were worried that it will kind of drive you overboard, but more or less the way that you would want to be able to create the map and have, like you mentioned, the custom buildings and stuff like that. You wouldn't want to use like base assets. It seems more uh, your criteria is what would kind of push you away from it, is what it sounded like, correct?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I have zero knowledge right now on AI traffic splines and all that stuff, but just like everything else, I'm sure I could learn it decently quick. And at this point, I have a handful of friends that I chat with on the regular that have maps now. So if I wanted to make a map, I probably could get up to speed pretty quick. But like I said, the things that would make me really interested in making it, I don't currently have any ideas for.
Gotcha. And you mentioned towards the beginning that you started out with kind of doing just small edits and stuff like that. What were some of the edits that you would start with doing when you like first got starting with your modding?
So what started it for me, like I mentioned, was specifically the quick bail in 22. And as much as I love the mod and I love the fast bail that it was based off of, obviously, but to me, the quick bail as a mod was purely unrealistic. I don't mean to, not hating on anybody, just the way it was set up, and that's how the modder chose to do it. But it was cheaper, faster, bigger bales. Everything about it was a benefit. You know what I mean? So what drove me to start editing it was my play style is kind of similar, like we just talked about. All the kind of base versions of my mods. That's kind of how I play. I want to have a small boost in volume or speed or whatever. But I don't want to go. I don't want it to be crazy. So I actually I actually took the quick bale and made it worse in a sense. I hiked the price up. I made it a little slower, and I most uniquely, I guess you could say, is I really dove into how the custom bale system worked, and I figured that out, and I made my own custom bales that were not so crazy unrealistic as the quick bale had like 10,000, 25,000, and 50,000 liter bales or something like that, something crazy.
Gotcha. And doing the show here, I have talked to a lot of people and have kind of seen this overarching theme with a lot of the people I've talked to. And there seems to be some sort of connection between their kind of real life, what's going on in their real life versus what's going on in the kind of game world. So, what I mean by that is that there's a connection between the game itself and I grew up out in the country, or I worked on a farm, or I lived on a farm, or whatever the case may be. Do you have that sort of connection to where, kind of seemed like it kind of played into the easy flow into Farming Simulator of all games? Or do you not have that connection?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't really have that connection. I briefly hinted at it. Like I said, my grandfather did grow up on a farm. Um, I honestly didn't fully realize that, like until I read his obituary. Oh yeah, but yeah, I guess yeah. When he was younger, his grandparents had a farm, but I never, um, when I knew him, he didn't do any farming and stuff like that. My uncle does own a farm, but I've actually never been out there in any meaningful capacity. When I was younger, I used to visit in the winters when everything was kind of, done for the season. So I know he has land, and I know he has a small, kind of operation out there, but I have no idea what he actually um, does as far as what crops and his grains of some type. But yeah, there's no actual direct connection. I grew up in Minnesota, but most of wouldn't say I grew up in very rural. I grew up in the suburbs, but a lot of my family lives in rural Minnesota, but none of them are directly tied to farming at this point.
So what kind of got you started in Farm Sim? Like, did you just see it out there available one day and it's like, man, I'll give it a try?
So what started it was actually I watched I guess you call it a documentary. It was on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen it. It was I think he's a kind of like a tech channel, but he did this, oh my God, Farming Simulator has an esport league. Let's go check this out. And I kind of watched the video, and he went to one of the FSL tournaments and kind of talked about how Farming Simulator has this, surprisingly interesting kind of esports league that they run. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I kind of watching the video, I started thinking like that's kind of a cool game. I kind of want to check that out and think what draws me into it is as an engineer is the machinery. Like I like seeing the big tractors and trucks and all the different types of implements and stuff like that, and even you know getting to drive big trucks and stuff like that. So it's kind of what drew me into it after I saw that kind of first exposure of what FSL is and whatnot.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's the it's the kind of draw of the machinery and the kind of engineering portion of your background that really kind of drew you into the series itself, and it's kind of taken hold from there.
Yeah, it's the machinery, and I've always been a fan of simulator games, and I really like kind of games that have a kind of back end logistics of things. So like, got to move this here first to do this, but once I do that, I can do this. So it kind of goes into farming just fine. I can gotta get this machine so I can do this to the field. And once I do that, I can do this, and I go pick this up from that section over there and bring that over here. And so the kind of managing, logistics manager type thing is kind of something I generally like to do in different types of simulator games that I've played in the past.
So, for your modding career, has there been anybody in particular that you kind of have taken either inspiration from or you kind of look up to? You mentioned a few names earlier. Is there anybody out there that you're like, that's the person I kind of model myself after?
I wouldn't say there's anybody that I intentionally kind of model after. Chris S, if he's still here, big shout out again. He's helped me a good bit and kind of bounce ideas and questions off him. And I feel like I've helped him a little bit with a couple things, but maybe I feel like I was more helpful than he actually thinks. But yeah, I wouldn't say I aspire to be just like Chris, but he's definitely been super helpful. And like I said, we chit chat a good bit about stuff, and he's been a great one to kind of work with on some ideas or issues I've been having.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris S. a good guy, real good guy. Let's see, and I think, yeah, that is the last question I have for this segment here. So we're gonna once again set our sight on the chat there and see what everybody's chatting about and see if there's any more questions. And we do have a few. Again, big shout out to Dust Bunny for gathering up all these questions. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. We got another one here from Ken says, "What gave you the inspiration for the tractor swathing?" Which we kind of touched on earlier.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you kind of missed what we said earlier. I wanted to get a swathing mod because I enjoyed doing swathing in 22, and I was just kind of thinking with my, I guess I'll call them limitations, my current limitations, how can I get a swathing mod into the game? And then just as I was sitting there at work one day, just kind of popped into my head that I could take a regular grain header and probably be able to modify it. And once I got home and got the ball rolling, I realized it was very doable and kind of just got in there and started editing things, and all just kind of worked out from there. Just the idea of what if I use a tractor, and then kind of snowballed from there.
And Ken also says, BTW, I use the tractor swathing on Iowa Plains map. Oh, yeah, that's a good map to use it on, too. Again, Ken, thank you so much for your questions. We got another one here another one here for Farmer Donkey. He asks, would you ever take part in making a mod specifically for some shenanigans?
I mean, yeah, I feel like I do have some ideas right now that some people in the farm sim community might say are useless. I'd say they're fun. So could see some more of that in the future, depending on what kind of shenanigans you want. But to that end, the tractor pulling sled is a useless farming tool. It's just fun.
So, when you come up with the ideas for the mods that you're going to take part in, um, is it more or less mods that you feel that you personally would use, or are you trying to kind of expand that out into just a more broader community view?
It's a little bit of both. A lot of it is kind of things that I feel like fill a gap. Um, right now, I have 18 mods, two of which are not on the mod hub yet. They're still pending. So I only regularly use two of those. But I could see myself using every single one of them if my save game was needing it, per se. Um, but yeah, I do feel like to an extent it's stuff that I want to see. But there have been a couple things I've been like, especially some of the configurations. Like I said, I don't play super unrealistic, but I know players are interested in that. So while I set up, for example, Round Bailers Plus again, if we're going back to the first one, I set it up, the default and the version that pops up when you first open the store is how I would use it. But I do have configurations up to 9 times capacity, or tractor swathing. I don't use the unrealistic working lifts, but I have configurations that go up to 14 meters or whatever for trying to cater to the things I know people would like to see.
Gotcha. All right, Farmer Donkey, thank you so much for your question. And that appears to be the last question I have from the chat. So we're going to go ahead and start wrapping things up and go into our third and final segment called That's a Silage Wrap. So, BB, thank you so much for coming on to the show here tonight, hanging out with us, and answering all of our questions. Greatly appreciate it. Hope you had a real fun time.
I did. Thanks so much for having me. It's been great to kind of look back and reflect on some of the things that have gone on this past year. And like I said, it's pretty early on in my journey, I would say, but I'm looking forward to where I can continue on from here.
Well, and I will talk for the community and on their behalf and say that we are looking forward to seeing what it is that you have to offer us in the future. So I want to thank you personally for the mods that you brought out. A lot of them I use personally. So thank you very much for everything that you've done. And I guarantee that there's many other people out there who will either watching or will watch this and are going to thank you as well. Because again, if it wasn't for creators such as yourself, Farm Sim wouldn't be half the game of what it is. So thank you very much, not only for being on the show tonight, but thank you for everything that you do for the community.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. So before we sign off here, do you want to inform us of any projects that you're currently working on or potentially thinking about doing in the future?
I'll give you a couple of little teasers. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit when we did the agribusiness the other week. I actually started working on yesterday. My next new mod is going to be a mobile PTO kind of power generator, could say. A big box with fancy decorations on it and stuff, but more or less, pick it up with a pair of pallet forks and you can set it in front of stationary tools like the Go stationary baler, wood chippers, the pellet maker from the straw harvest. So the idea is you put it in front of that and you hook it up, and you don't need to use a tractor for those. You can just turn that on, and it's going to be cheaper than a tractor. So you can just use that as a dedicated, machine for those stationary tools. And I have some ideas I'm going to look into that I think might make it pretty unique. It's already unique because there's nothing on Mod right now that does that, but I got some ideas that I think could make it really cool. Aside from that, I do have a couple ideas I'm looking at, a couple other conversions that I'm possibly talking with people on, helping them with, and then some updates to some of my current stuff. And I have some planned stuff right now to update some additional trailers for the my brain just turned off for a second there. The agro trailers pack. I have some more trailers I want to do for that. And then I do need to fix a bug with the Swathing Plus, so that's also coming soon.
I gotcha. I mean, I'm really looking forward to that powered PTO. We had something very similar to it in FS22, and I've been desperately missing it. So yeah, that coming back, that would be chef's kiss for me. But again, I'm
Yeah,
sure that
there's a trailer version for 22 that somebody gave me the idea and pointed me towards that, and I said that's kind of cool. But I think I wanted to make it more like a skid mounted. So you have to pick it up with pallet forks, and it's a little more stationary. You don't tow it around and stuff. But maybe I'll do a trailer version. I'm not sure, but I'm definitely doing a skid version.
yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing that one whenever that comes to the Mod Hub. We'll be watching every day for that to come up. But no, that sounds fantastic. Do you want to tell us where we can find you again?
Yeah, primarily contact me on Facebook, BBMods on Facebook, or my Discord. There's a link for that in the bottom. I also, like I said, I do post on Itch. I do check my comments on Itch, but Itch doesn't have a good way to contact people. But if you leave a comment on Itch, I'll probably get back to you eventually. I do check that pretty regularly. But if you're trying to get a hold of me, definitely Discord's probably the best way to get a hold of me directly. I check my Discord probably way too many times a day. So
I feel your pain right there. Let's see. Oh, Dust Bunny beat me to it. Thank you so much, Dust Bunny. Greatly appreciate it. I saw the message from Farmer Donkey asking if there's a better link. I will make sure that I grab that at the end of the stream here and repost it into the description. Because apparently that's just taking Farmer Donkey back to his messages. So we'll figure that one on the back end. But again, BB Mods, thank you so much for coming out here tonight. Greatly appreciate it. Had an absolute blast with you here tonight. So this is the part.
Thank you.
This,
I had so much fun too.
I'm glad to hear it. This is the part of the show where I turn my sights to the chat and say, did you enjoy this? If you did, let me know who it is that you would like to see in BB Mod's position. Who is it out there that you would like to see do an interview? Unfortunately, I can't know everybody who's out there. It'd be virtually impossible. There's so many people, so many modders, so many content creators. I mean, there's a mess of them. So if there's somebody out there who's your favorite that you'd like to see come onto the show, let me know. Reach out to me on any of my social medias. They're all listed below. They're also linked in the description, and I will do my absolute best to get them onto the show and, you know, do what we did here tonight. The only requirements I have is they have to be above the age of 18. That's about it. And the only other thing is that they have some kind of connection to Farming Simulator. So modders, map makers, content creators, even talking about getting some farmers in on the show, you know, because without farmers, we have no farm sim. So one of those that there's somebody out there you'd like me to try and contact, I will do my absolute best to do so. But I hope you enjoyed the show here tonight. And if you did, please show them about liking, sharing, subscribing, following, commenting, doing all the things the algorithms enjoy you doing. The shows you're engaged with this channel and enjoying the content. And that being said, I hope everybody has a fantastic day. Take care. BB, hang on for just 1 second until after the outro, and I'll catch you on the other side. All right. Take care, everyone.
This is Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Let's roll. Out here in the country, where the roads run wide, there's a world behind the pixels that we're bringing to the light. From maps to mods to the rigs we drive, we're talking to the folks who keep this farm life alive. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull up a chair and ride along with me. Stories from the makers, the builders of the scene. Farm Sim Talk, where we live the farming dream. He's got questions rolling like a big John Deere, digging deep with modders so their voices we can hear. From giants of the code to the artists painting skies, he's shining up their stories like a brand new combine. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull up a chair and ride along with me. Stories from the makers, the builders of the scene. Farm Sim Talk, where we live the farming dream. From tractors to textures, from silos to sounds, there's a whole crew of heroes making this world go round. So tune in and find out who's behind the screen. Farm Sim Talk's the place to see what farming really means. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull